Hi, I'm Leah Longbrake, the president of the Cleveland Association of Broadcasters and a producer and host with Evergreen Podcasts. I'm here today with fellow board member Yonni Rude, who is the operations manager for Radio 1 Cleveland. Hey, Yonni, how's it going?
It's going great. What are we, almost a year into quarantine, and I don't think I've gotten comfortable being at home all this time yet.
No? Are you missing going to the office every day?
I miss people coming to my office and going, "Hey, are you busy?" And my response is always, "Trick question. What do you want?"
Yeah, right?
I miss that kind of interaction.
And that has to be probably one of the biggest changes is there's email and text, I'm sure, that you're getting constantly, but it's not that same interaction.
No, now the interaction is, "You're on mute. We can't hear you."
Sometimes it's a good thing.
True. Very, very true.
So Yonni, tell us about just briefly, your journey into being an operations manager and coming here to Cleveland.
Well, let's see. I'm third generation radio and TV. My grandfather was general manager for 2 radio stations and 2 TV stations in 2 different islands in the Caribbean. My mom got into radio when she was 16. I got into TV when I was 8 and, started radio shortly after that. Fast forward to the States and, college, and then I started at WZFX in Fayetteville, North Carolina, took about 6 months off from radio, said, you know what, let's go get a real job and put this degree to use. And then 6 months later, I was right back in the radio.
It's in your blood.
Exactly. Once it's in there, you can't get rid of it. It's in your blood. That's it. So ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, was there for quite a while, then Richmond, Virginia. And in 2019, this is where I'd say it was fast paced. My world just exploded. I was in Richmond, then I went to Detroit. And then 6 months later, to the day I went to Detroit, I drove out, heading to Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't, and here's the thing, it's not a bad thing. It was all good. It was all progression. And I don't think I ever saw myself going to Cleveland at any point in time. And then all of a sudden I'm in Cleveland. I'm like, you know what? Why didn't I ever want to come to Cleveland before? So,
hey.
But it just was one of those cities that wasn't on the map for me. And then here you are. And this is what Detroit wasn't on the map for me either. Neither was Richmond. You always think New York, Dallas, Miami, and then you get to go to these cool cities along the way. And Cleveland is one of those stops for me right now. I'm loving the time here, even though quarantine has stopped me from seeing all of Cleveland right now.
That is very true, actually. But I was going to say, we Clevelanders, we can hook you in and make you want to stay.
The good thing is I was able to go to a Browns game in 2019.
Well, I was going to say, so when you moved here and took on the job at Radio 1, you only were in the role for maybe a year, not even, just shy of a year when we went into lockdown.
Yeah, because I got to Cleveland in August and actually moved into Cleveland in August. And what happened then was, you're thinking of March so that's what, 7 months later, that we're in lockdown. So I haven't gotten a full summer in Cleveland outside. I mean, I've been inside.
Well, yeah, true. But at least at home, there's probably more of a window, whereas at the radio station, you probably wouldn't really have that.
Great point. And one thing I've noticed along my journey is that my office has gotten smaller and my window has gotten smaller to now non-existent. So I don't have a window to outside.
Oh, God.
So that's the great thing from working at home.
Well, I want to talk about the lockdown and COVID, because with your role as an operations manager, obviously all of us in any business, not just in media, we had to go through major changes.
Right.
But for your role in specific, what was the biggest hurdle, the biggest challenge when going into lockdown?
It's the interesting thing about that is, I think, sound quality. I'd have to go with that, because not everyone had a studio at home. And as we were talking about prior to starting this, is, your home, you're working on home improvement projects. Well, for those of us in the broadcast industry, now it's okay. Now we're working on the home studio too, because I did not have this microphone in my house. I did not have this mic arm, I didn't have this many boards. It's so right. That sound quality and getting everybody to understand, how do we get the proper sound quality? We take for granted what the engineers do and how they construct the studios to allow for the right sound. And then you say, oh, well, I can just record in my living room. Well, if you have a high ceiling, now you've got echoes bouncing all over the place and it sounds like you're in the bathroom. So what you had was a lot of people going into their closets, those that could go into closets. And of course, it can't be an empty closet, can't be a hardwood floor closet because the sound will still bounce everywhere. You've got to have a lot of clothes around you. So it gives you that studio insulated sound. And so that was the biggest obstacle, I will say, because the great thing is we are able to work remotely.
So what was your process then with getting all the equipment out and meeting these different bullet point needs to your hosts and producers? 'Cause outside of radio here and podcasting and I'm sure in television as well,
Mhm.
these are some tips that I'm sure if you share that we can all utilize from.
So the easy thing for me, and this is where it becomes really easy for me, is that I've got a great team. And my engineering team actually did all that work. So I didn't have to. But one of the things I tell people all the time is that you don't have to get the most expensive mic. You don't have to get the Shure SM7B. You can get the Blue Yeti microphone. Those work just as well. It's really just about having the proper insulation. If there's no carpeting in that room, you don't want to record in that room because you're going to get the echoes. You want to make sure your AC unit isn't running because the last thing you need is that whirring sound in the background.
Yes.
So that's why the closet works so well, because if you go into a closet, it's semi-insulated. You've got clothing in there to absorb that sound. So it's basically about where you record as opposed to what you're recording with. You do want a microphone. You do want, even if you use the iRig, the iRig has the actual microphone that plugs into your phone. And that's a great one to use. The Voice Recorder Pro app is one we used for remotes for a long time. Because there was a time over the years that we were just calling in on our cell phones to do remotes. Well, here comes the voice recorder app, which what that does, it gives you a cleaner sound. So now imagine if you're using a voice recorder app and you've got an iRig microphone that plugs into your phone. Now you've got better studio sound. But if you're sitting in your living room with a high ceiling, you're still going to get that echo. So again, we're back to the closet. Let's get back in there.
Well, then, so when choosing the equipment for each person, was it based off of their specific location and needs, or was it like, okay, these are the microphones that we know work best, so we're going to get these for everyone and ship them out, or figure out a time people can pick up without interacting with each other?
Yeah.
Was it that way, or was it by a case by case basis?
Case by case basis. And because like one of my personalities has a setup in the house. Actually, a couple of them have setups in their house because they do voice work outside of radio. So those people are already prepared for this situation. Then you have others who have a tandem show, Sam Silk and Bijou Star. And so you've got them in two separate locations, and you've got their producer, Kenya, who's in the studio running the show because now they're at home and they've got to interact with each other in real time. There's no way to pre-record that.
Right.
So what we're using now is the Comrex to dial into the station, and they interact that way. And it allows them to also interact with listeners. So they haven't skipped a beat. Every feature they did from the very beginning, interacting with callers, that's been happening from the beginning of quarantine. And then same thing even on Z1079, you've got Road Digger who wanted to get back into interacting with her audience a lot more. So we had a setup so that she's able to do that as well. And she's got somebody in the studio to be able to make those calls happen. But she can also pre-record breaks and send them in if need be.
Right.
So it all depends on the show. You've got our weekend staff that are going to just pre-record their breaks and send them in. And they've got to be on the ready. If something breaking happens, you've got to be able to send in your break, update your breaks and send them in, because we can't just, the world can't be burning and we're sitting there, being happy-go-lucky.
Do you see, once the lockdown is finally lifted, which who knows when that's going to be, but once that happens, do you think everyone will be back in the studio and offices, or are you finding a more time efficient, cost efficient, with business, with people being at home?
It's going to be interesting. I don't think everybody gets back in the office. You've got so many different departments within the radio station. Most people think of the radio station, who think of the personalities, and that's it. There's nobody else that exists in the radio station.
They don't mind those salespeople and marketing and
Exactly. People that keep the lights on, those wonderful promotions and prizes you get. No, don't worry about that. No. But really and truly, you've got the salespeople who I love to say they keep the lights on because they sell advertising and they allow us to stay in business. But do they need to be in the office all the time? And some of them are loving the fact that they can be out. They can work from home. And if you go back to old school radio, you'd see people who would leave the office. Hey, I'm going on a sales call. Come back with, a lot of errands done. But I think now people are understanding about what they can do, and they don't need to have a desk to be seated in the office all the time.
Right.
And I don't think everyone's going to want to come back. I think you're going to see office spaces shrinking. You're going to need the studio still. But then again, they're also, as you've seen what iHeart has done across the nation, is really downsizing their staff. And now you've got people voice tracking multiple markets. So how big of a studio do you really need if you've got syndication throughout your entire station? So that's another thing that's there as well. How many live bodies, and is syndication going to take over in the long run? And so I do believe we're back in the buildings. We're going to be back out in front of people, shaking hands, kissing babies. But at some point, I don't think it's everybody back into the building. I think there's some people who are going to be, if it's okay, I don't mind working from home. You can give my office to someone else. I'll come in for the big meetings. And that's fine too. And salespeople can be that same way. They can work remotely and come in for the big meetings if need to. And some will be fine with that. And some are like, no, I need to get out of my house. I need to be able to go somewhere. So I think it's going to be up to the company and up to the actual staff members as well too.
I feel the same way as you. Like I like working from home. And if I have to just go in for the big meetings, I feel like I'm more efficient as a worker this way. I know you miss the people coming to your office door every 5 minutes, but I could easily be distracted.
Right.
I like that my distraction is just changing dishes out of the dishwasher and then going back to my desk.
I find I'm actually working a lot more at home. And to me, it's both. I love working at home because I've got a newborn, so I get to spend more time with her. So that's a great thing. But at the same time, if I'm going into the office, I'm in the office at 6, 7 in the morning. I'm at home. I'm going, well, I can waddle downstairs at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's fine. I'll make it down there. I'm not waking up till 8:45. I'm just like, all right, let me brush my teeth. I'm fine. I'm going. But but you're going into the office. It's a different sense because I have to leave by this time.
Right.
So, yeah.
What do you find to be the biggest, the most positive impact on your role and in radio in general from COVID?
Honestly, for me, I think personally, on my role, it's been delegation. I think that's something for me throughout my career that is because I've had hands in so many different things on the way up to my current position that it's great to keep your hands on and understand. But I don't want to be one of those overbearing managers, right? And I love being able to delegate. And in this sense, you have to. But the problem is when you know how to do so many things, you go, I'll just get it done. And I think this has been better for me to just go, no, you do this, you do this, you do this. I think what I've seen, though, for everyone else in the industry is understanding the role that we really have and how to connect, even though you're not in the studio. Because there were a lot of personalities who felt disconnected because they weren't standing in the studio. And I'm like, well, if you think about it in this sense, when you're in the studio, you're in a room by yourself, playing music, talking to yourself, and allowing others to eavesdrop. You can do that from home. It's okay. You can relate to others the same way from home. And it's once I think everyone kind of realized that they can do that and you can keep the same energy. And you've just got to find a different way to connect and use social media in that way. And I think that's the key thing, as they're using social media more to connect. Now take that with you when you get back in the studio. Don't lose this, because if social media is where our audience is hanging out, that's where we need to be. Yeah. And then you bring them back.
What other trends are you seeing in radio right now?
Honestly, I think what we're seeing is a lot of more involvement in social media, as I said just a minute ago. And the reason why, because you've got TikTok. Everyone's on TikTok. You've got this new app, Clubhouse, where you're seeing a lot more conversation, which again, this is one of these audio platforms that proves that audio is here to stay. There's no commenting on Clubhouse. There are no pictures to post on Clubhouse besides your profile pic. So it's all about conversation. And that's what radio has been. And now I think we're also seeing that trend into podcasting.
Yeah.
I think podcasting at one point was seen as just, oh, well, it's a fad, it's going to go away. And then they're like, no, it's not going away. it's here to stay. And it's a great platform. And it's a great way to carry on the conversation. It's one of those things that we've talked to personalities about throughout the years, and some have embraced it, some haven't. And I think now more people are looking for ways to get their voice out, their opinion out, and realizing that this is another way to do it. And so I think this embracing of the different aspects of what radio has and where we can be impactful, I think is what I've seen a lot of growth in.
And you mentioned syndication. So you see that definitely is on the upswing for sure as a trend.
Syndication, and I want to say over the last 20 years, it's interesting because 20 years ago, when Tom Joyner was really, skyrocketing and syndication, and went, there are all these morning talents that are now going out of business, right? Because they were being replaced. What happens when he retires in 20 years? And I'm not Nostradamus. I had no idea he was going to retire in 20 years, but, but it was just a question. It was a thought I had. And then here we are 20 years later, what happens? And you're noticing there are not as many personalities out there that have been groomed for morning radio. Luckily, we were able to bring Ricky Smiley from mainstream to Tom Joyner's seat, and that was a seamless transition because Ricky had a great following, and then now you had to fill his seat. So you see that happening, but you're also seeing even on mainstream radio, afternoon syndication, and you're seeing nighttime syndication, which were things that you saw mainly in the urban AC and the older formats, because you think of John Tesh radio and
Delilah.
Delilah,
yeah.
Who doesn't know Delilah, right?
Delilah.
You think of morning radio first, but of course the rest of the day parts are going to come, and that's going to happen. And it was our own thing of saying, no, they'll never replace me. We're all replaceable at any given time. Syndication allows for the bottom line to cut down on expenses. And at that point, when you're really looking at it that way, is the product better? Am I saving money? And it depends on who's running the ship that determines which is more important. And sometimes syndication is the better option, and sometimes it's not. And hopefully it's not the one thing that cannibalizes radio, because I think we've been attacked so many ways from TV. TV is going to kill radio. Then satellite radio is going to kill radio, and CDs, and now social media is going to do it. And in actuality, I think if radio ever dies, it's radio killed itself.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I completely agree with you. So what would be your advice to personalities that are maybe feeling that with, syndication? So it's kind of like this one person and you five are done, and, podcasting is now more of a thing. Like, what do you tell personalities that are kind of feeling the pressure and the competition?
The key thing, and we've had a lot of these discussions, and I bring up Clubhouse again, because this is where we've had a lot of discussions and seen that there are a lot of people out there that are still interested in radio. Because as much as to say, oh, radio is dying, no, there are a lot of people who still want to get into radio. YouTubers who've got great followings, podcasters who have great followings. So how do I get into radio? And that tells you that the medium is still strong, because you still have people who are successful in their own right that still want to get into this. And my advice to a lot of them is really just keep working on your craft, and not only working on your craft, but also expanding. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket and say, oh, I want to do this. Okay, what else do you do as well? Can you do a podcast? Are you on social media? Are you active? So all of these things are keys, because program directors and operations managers around the company are looking for the best talent, and that best talent has to be multifaceted. You can't just have a good voice and say, oh, well, people tell me I have a voice for radio. That's great. But can you go out and shake hands? Are you good with people? Are you good on stage? Can you write a story? Because now in radio, you have to be able to write stories and put them on the website. You have to be able to do social media. And in this day and age of virtual events, that's not going away because
No.
people are seeing more attendance via virtual events. So when we get back to in person, virtual events are still going to be there. I think they're going to be half and half. So are you able to host virtually? Are you able to have good on camera expressions and composure? Well, you've got to be able to do all three of these things, four, because if we're talking in person, all four of these things and do them well. So can you? Because that's what we're looking for, a well-rounded person.
That's a beautiful advice. And, I am a alumni of Ohio Media School, and I'm on their board as well. And I think a lot of students need to hear that are getting into radio, or wanting to get into radio,
Right.
is you need to be multifaceted. You need to have your knowledge in many aspects of the business.
And we have quite a few people on my staff, as a matter of fact, who were also products of Ohio Media School. Ro Digger, my afternoon drive on Z1079, and then Matty Wills is also from Ohio Media School. He does middays, and he was a perfect example of persistence and just constantly working on the craft, and even as just working weekends. And like, okay, well, here, how do I get better? How do I improve? What do I need to do? And those are the things that really help, air checking yourself. And I always like to tell talent, you should be your own biggest critic. There's no way I should listen to you more than you listen to you.
Right.
When I was a talent, I would air check myself while I'm on the air. As I'm driving home, I'm listening to it, hearing everything I did wrong. And then on the way back into work the next day, I'm listening to it again just to see, okay, what do I need to fix?
Yeah.
And that constant repetition, you're constantly working on yourself and your delivery. It allows you to improve and sending it out to as many people as possible. Just seeking advice. And one of the key things I think in this day and age is really reaching out and networking, because at this point, it's just sending out an air check to someone and going, hey, I'd love to get your feedback. Now you can send out 20 and get one response. Don't feel bad. Send out another 20 and even send it to those same 19 that didn't respond and say, hey, not sure if you got a chance to check out the first one, but here's another one here, or here's an updated. Love to get your feedback. And keep sending it, because they say, oh, I don't want to bug people. Actually, those are the people they remember the most.
Yeah.
Until they tell you, don't ever contact me again. You keep contacting people.
And don't be afraid of constructive criticism.
Exactly.
I don't care how long you've been in the business. Do
Exactly.
not be afraid of constructive criticism. That only makes you better.
Exactly. I think someone told me this when I first started at ZFX. It was the previous morning show producer, and he said to me, you can learn something from everybody. You can learn what to do and learn what not to do.
Yep. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about the role of an operations manager?
That's a good question. I think I don't know, because I don't have anyone who said, well, you were supposed to do this. I think probably the biggest thing is that we know everything that's happening before it happens. And I would say that because especially there's some things that are on the GM level that are above our pay grade. And, you think managers know everything. We actually don't know everything. There's some things that we're not privy to because there are managers that we report to.
Right.
And there's some things they can't tell us. So, but other than that, I think the other part is that if you've been an operations manager like I am in this role and I'm not on air on a regular basis, well, you wouldn't know what I'm going through. Well, no, actually, we came through those ranks as well. We were on air at one point, and it's just as the roles evolved, and you're now in charge of more stations that maybe you're not doing an on-air shift because you've got other talent that can do it. And it's a great thing because it allows more talent to be exposed to get experience anyway.
Any final advice for those in the radio industry or those looking to get into it?
Honestly, I'll say again, the key thing is you can learn something from everybody. You learn what to do, what not to do. Also, another great thing that was taught to me, which was when opportunity knocks, are you going to be ready? Are you going to have your bag by the door? You're going to say, hold on, let me go get my bag. No, always be ready. So if someone says, hey, send me an air check, you should have one ready to go. And don't worry about getting it perfect before you send it out. Send it out. Get that constructive criticism, because that's the way you improve. Nobody's looking for the perfect person, because we're all looking for somebody that's hungry. We're looking for somebody that's humble, and we're looking for someone that's willing to be coached and is able to be coached, because it doesn't matter how great you are. If you're not coachable, Like Mike Singletary said when he was coaching my team, the 49ers, can't work with him. Can't do it. Just can't do it.
I hurt you, Yonni. How can we reach you and get more information on Radio One?
So I'm Yonni Rude everywhere on social media, and actually my email, yonnyrude@radio-one.com.
Thank you so much, Yonni, for being with us today. And thank you for tuning in. For more information on the Cleveland Association of Broadcasters, check us out at cabcleveland.com and on social media at CAB_CLE.